Welcome back to Narrations. This month's stories are about new beginnings, second chances, and what happens when we stop saying no to life out of fear. Tonight's movie is Yes Man, a story about loneliness, routine, and the unexpected transformation that begins when one man decides to open himself up to the world again. This isn't a loud motivational story. It's a gentle reminder of how easily life can shrink when we stop engaging with it. Our story begins in Los Angeles, following the quiet, repetitive life of Carl Allen. Carl works as a loan officer at a bank. His job revolves around denial, denying loans, denying dreams, denying people the futures they want to build. And outside of work, Carl's life mirrors his profession perfectly. He says no to everything. No to invitations. No to phone calls. No to social events. No to change. Carl wasn't always like this. Once, he was married. Once, he believed in partnership, spontaneity, and shared plans. But after his divorce, something inside him closed off. Saying no became his defense, a way to avoid disappointment, rejection, and vulnerability. Now, his days follow a predictable loop. Wake up. Go to work. Come home. Watch television alone. Repeat. His apartment is quiet. His phone rarely rings. His friendships have faded not through conflict, but neglect. His closest friend Peter still invites him out, still hopes Carl will show up, but Carl always finds an excuse. No feels safer. At its center is a charismatic speaker who presents a radical idea. For 1 year, say yes to everything. Not selectively. Not carefully. Unconditionally. Carl dismisses it as nonsense. But when the speaker singles him out, pushing him to make a public commitment, Carl hesitates, then, almost accidentally, agrees. He promises to say yes. At first, the consequences are immediate and uncomfortable. On his way home, a stranger asks Carl for a ride. Carl says yes, and ends up driving miles out of his way. The stranger asks for money. Carl says yes again. Then the stranger asks to borrow his phone, draining the battery. Carl is stranded, broke, and frustrated. This is exactly why he says no. But something unexpected happens. Through that inconvenience, Carl stumbles into a moment of kindness, helping someone else, even at his own expense. And for the first time in a long while, he feels engaged. The yes continue. Carl says yes to a homeless shelter donation and accidentally ends up volunteering. He says yes to guitar lessons. Yes to language classes. Yes to invitations he would have ignored before. Each yes disrupts his routine. And slowly, his world begins to expand. At the bank, Carl's attitude starts to shift. Instead of reflexively denying loans, he listens. He evaluates possibilities instead of risks alone. His supervisors notice. His coworkers are confused, but intrigued. Carl's friendships change too. He shows up. He participates. He listens. And then, through one of his yeses, Carl meets Allison. Allison is creative, energetic, and emotionally open, everything Carl is not. She lives fully, saying yes naturally, not as a rule, but as a way of being. She challenges Carl without pressuring him, drawn to his awkward sincerity and growing curiosity. As Carl and Allison spend time together, Carl experiences something unfamiliar. Joy without control. But the experiment isn't without consequences. Saying yes to everything begins to stretch Carl thin. He overcommits. He exhausts himself. He starts losing track of his own needs, confusing openness with obligation. And the question emerges. Is saying yes always the right answer? Or does meaning come from choosing yes, not surrendering to it? As Carl's life grows louder, fuller, and more complicated, he must confront why he said no in the first place, and whether fear or wisdom shaped that choice. Because transformation isn't about extremes. It's about balance. And Carl is only beginning to understand that. As Carl's year of saying yes continues, the momentum of his new life begins to catch up with him. At first, the yes felt liberating. They opened doors. They brought people back into his life. They reminded him what it felt like to participate instead of observe. But now, the weight of constant agreement starts to show. Carl is exhausted. His calendar is overflowing with commitments he barely remembers making. He rushes from one obligation to another, rarely stopping to ask himself whether any of them actually matter to him. The rule that once freed him now feels like another form of control. Still, he keeps going. With Allison, Carl experiences genuine connection. Their relationship grows through shared adventures, spontaneous trips, and creative moments. Allison is drawn to Carl's willingness to try, to risk embarrassment, to step into the unknown. But she also senses something off. Carl doesn't choose experiences, he submits to them. He doesn't express preferences, he defers to the rule. And slowly, Allison begins to feel less like a partner and more like another item on Carl's growing list of yes. At work, Carl's transformation brings attention. His more compassionate approach to approving loans helps people. Families. Small businesses. Dreams once dismissed now have a chance. Customers are grateful. His reputation shifts from rigid gatekeeper to empathetic listener. But management grows concerned. Rules exist for a reason, they argue. And Carl's newfound openness threatens the structure they depend on. Once again, Carl finds himself caught between systems and sincerity. The turning point comes when the consequences of saying yes become unavoidable. Carl agrees to things that hurt people he cares about, not intentionally, but thoughtlessly. He misses important moments. He breaks promises. And when Allison discovers that Carl's devotion to yes came from a seminar rather than personal conviction, she feels betrayed. She doesn't want to be part of an experiment. She wants to be chosen. Allison walks away. For Carl, this loss feels eerily familiar. He realizes that he replaced one form of avoidance with another. Saying no once protected him from pain. Saying yes blindly protected him from responsibility. Mather was honest. Carl returns to the seminar's creator, hoping for clarity, only to discover that the man preaching unconditional yes doesn't actually live by it himself. The philosophy that once felt revolutionary now appears shallow. Disillusioned, Carl stops. No more rules. No more extremes. He reflects. For the first time in a long while, Carl doesn't ask what he should do, he asks what he wants. He reaches out to Allison, not with grand gestures, but with honesty. He admits his fear, his avoidance, his confusion. He explains that saying yes taught him how much life he had been missing, but also that meaning comes from intention, not obligation. Allison listens. And slowly, trust begins to rebuild. Carl also reconnects with his friends, not as someone chasing novelty, but as someone present and reliable. He learns when to say yes with enthusiasm, and when to say no with care. The experiment ends quietly. Not with fireworks or declarations, but with balance. Yes Man closes on a simple truth. Life doesn't open up because we say yes to everything. It opens up when we stop saying no out of fear. It's a story about learning to engage with the world again, not recklessly, but courageously. About rediscovering joy after isolation. And about understanding that growth comes not from rules, but from awareness. As part of this month's theme of new beginnings, this story reminds us that sometimes, the first step forward is simply being willing to try, without losing ourselves in the process. If you enjoyed listening to this narration, please like the video. It really helps more listeners discover these stories. Share it with someone who enjoys reflective movies like this. And subscribe for more narrations about hope, change, and second chances. Thanks for listening.